Welcome into our Cubs Recap Podcast, a presentation of our YouTube channel here on the Recap channel. Hope you are a subscriber and available anywhere you get your audio-only versions of your favorite podcasts. With my partner, Gordon Wittenmeyer, I'm David Kaplan.
Hi, Gordon. Dave, I got something for you, Kap, man.
Bring it on.
Listen, I was just out in Anaheim. I'm in Phoenix now, enjoying the air conditioning because it's like 150 degrees out there. But I just came in from Anaheim, and I think I just saw Shohei Ohtani's last start. I saw his last pitch thrown of this season, and I'm wondering if I haven't seen his last pitch thrown, period. Second inning of the first game of a doubleheader against the Reds on Wednesday in Anaheim. And I mean, he looked great in the first inning, and then boom. And they say it's a torn UCL. It could mean second Tommy John, man. But the big thing is he's your guy. And what does that mean to you for him, possibly with the Cubs? There is speculation that he could go get treatment for this elbow as a pitcher and still keep hitting.
Correct. So I have made a lot of calls to executives that I trust in the game. And after talking to a number of different people, I don't want Ohtani. And this was pre-UCL second surgery, potentially injury. This was probably in the last 2 weeks. I look at that team, the Cubs, and I'm trying to not think of them as my favorite team that I cheer for. I think I look at the Cubs trying to act as a GM would think. I got to re-sign Cody Bellinger. I don't know who my first baseman is, and I think my window to win opens next year.
I don't think you sign Cody Bellinger. I think he sees the open market, and you don't go where the bidding goes.
Okay, I think there is a strong chance they sign Cody Bellinger. That's one. Two, I re-sign Jeimer Candelario, who wants to be in Chicago.
That I can see happening.
And then I go get a number one starter. So I look at 3 different signings, and I have spent somewhere around 400, something like that, million, as opposed to the money that Shohei's going to get, which is going to be dramatically decreased because of the pitching injury.
Well, so, this is where my question comes in, right? So I'm of the belief, not like you, that they're not going to get Cody Bellinger done. Maybe they do. I don't think they will. But what would your other plan be? Left-handed monster bat in the middle of the order, which is what Bellinger became for you this year. That's Shohei Ohtani.
Okay.
And Shohei Ohtani, even if he doesn't pitch.
Okay. How many years are you willing to give him?
Okay. Well, now this is one scenario that comes into play, right? If you're Shohei and he's 29 years old, and if he wants to continue pitching, so if he wants to go through what might be a lengthy rehab process to get that elbow right again so that he can be the two-way guy that he's been, he may not want a long-term deal because he may want to maximize his good health on the backside of that in a year or two, maybe a year. It might not be any more than getting through next year. And then hitting the free agent market again.
Yeah, I'm not doing a 1-year deal for $40 million. I'm not, no chance. Now, 2 years, if I can get him 2 years at $80 million to put that bat in my lineup,
go.
I'm interested. I said on the radio today that I would be willing to go a 6-year deal at $240 to put that monster bat in my lineup. But Jim Bowden thinks he's getting 10 at $400 with an opt-out after 25 to prove that he's healthy when he pitches again in 25. I'm not doing that. I am not guaranteeing someone $400 million, and then in 2 years he says, yeah, my arm feels good. I'm going out and getting $700 million, $800 million. Not doing it.
I am with you on that, and that's one massive risk because the other side of that coin is you're on the hook for all that money for a DH.
And what if his health continues to deteriorate?
I think let's assume that he can be the hitter. I mean, he's not a small guy. He's not. There's nothing fluky about the way he hits or where his power comes from. It's what makes him so valuable is obviously he's the pitcher too. But just as a bat who can lead the majors in home runs and be just this amazing left-handed monster in the middle of an order, that's pretty good. But unlike Bellinger, you're not getting a Gold Glove either, right? And he might be able to play some outfield for you if he's not going to pitch eventually.
Okay, so let me ask you this: if you're Jed Hoyer and Tom Ricketts calls you into a meeting, and he says, "Okay, Jed, here's how we do business here. I give you whatever that number is, 300 million, whatever the number is, and you spend it how you want on anything in baseball operations. What are you going to do?" And you can get Shohei Ohtani 2 for $80 million, and then he could leave. Or you can get Cody Bellinger. And the more I've talked to executives in the league, they do not think anyone in the game is giving him 8, 9, 10 years at stupid money. Nobody in the game believes that.
Yeah, I don't think it. Well, we'll see, because all it takes.
If I can get him 6 times 30, 6 times 35, I'm taking Cody Bellinger as opposed to having to give 10 years to Ohtani.
So that's KB's, Chris Bryant's contract. That was 6/182, right?
Correct. If I can get Bellinger at that number, now, if I can get Ohtani and Bellinger, and Ohtani's a 2-year commitment, I'm rolling the dice.
Yeah. So you asked me the question. Here's what I do if I'm Jed in that scenario. I put it back at Tom and I say, give me more than that for the next 2 years. And here's why. Because if we give me more than that, if I can get Ohtani, because if we get Ohtani, you're going to make tens of millions more for this franchise over that period of time.
I agree. But as I said on the radio, I'm not guaranteeing someone on their second Tommy John who I don't know exactly how much mileage is on his body from his days in Japan. He's a hell of a player, obviously, one of the best ever. If I have to guarantee him 10 years till age
no, that's not what I'm talking about.
Can't do it.
I'm talking about you have the leverage because of this injury, so use it. Get a shorter deal out of it. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about it's asinine to think that you would commit significant money, never mind record money, for this guy for an 8 to 10 or more year deal. That's asinine because of what's the health reality right now. Right. And it might have been asinine to begin with just because of the risk that we saw play out on Wednesday. Because that could have happened at any point. This guy that already had Tommy John surgery once.
Right. And the Tommy John he had was already when he came to the States. So it's pretty close to, to what, 2 years ago?
Yeah. And there's no way to. It was right after he got here. So he came to the States in 2018, and he was past his Tommy John surgery for the start of 2021. Is how I think that timeline.
And here we are 2 years later, and he might need another one.
Right, and the issue with him, beyond all of what's right in front of our faces, is that we can go talk to guys that have had multiple Tommy Johns. Jameson Taillon's one of those. We can talk to that and we see the precedent of that. But what we don't have a precedent for is a guy that puts as much stress on his body doing both things through 6 months a year, plus spring training, plus any postseason that he might one day see. So there's no book on it. So it just increases the risk that much more.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. Why do you not think the Cubs are going to get Cody Bellinger? Because they've got nothing but payroll flexibility.
I don't think it's about whether they want to or even whether he wants to come back or whether they have enough money to do it. Maybe all that's in play. But he's not going to sign before he goes to the open market. So they're going to have to get him on the open market. I think they've done that before, where they've been able to get guys. I mean, they brought Dexter Fowler back. That was a different kind of scenario, but they could go out there and compete. And if he wants to come back and they could pay the top dollar, they could decide to be, right of first refusal. Hey, you go find your best offer and come back to us and we'll match it, whatever. But we saw this play out with Chris Bryant and Scott Boras, same agent, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know if you thought I thought Chris Bryant got about the best deal I could have imagined with the Rockies.
I did not think he would get the money that he got, and I guarantee you
for the year.
The Colorado Rockies wish they didn't sign that deal.
Right, but so the point of that is, and this is where Boris is the best in the business historically at what he does. It takes one, and he leverages the market at every leverage point he can, and sometimes where you've heard all these stories over the years of, boy, that team was bidding against itself, and whether we can ever prove that or not, he works the system, and so he's going to work the system. And again, all it takes is that one team to throw the kind of money out there that the Cubs say, no, that just doesn't make any sense for us. Good luck, Cody. Wish you the best. The fact that he's going to hit the open market with Boris, to me, makes it feel like a long shot. It's certainly not a slam dunk. It's certainly not they'll probably get him back. To me, it's less likely that they get him back than get him back if that's the process.
So as you look at this team right now, and as we are recording this on Thursday afternoon, the wild card standings have the Phillies 2.5 clear in the top spot at 69 and 58. The second place team in a virtual tie with the Reds is the Cubs, 66 and 60. That's a .524 win percentage. The Reds are .523. So basically, they are locked up. Both teams are 6 and 4 their last 10. The Reds have won 3 straight. The Cubs have won their last game against the Tigers, took that series. So as you look at where it's at right now today, how do you think this thing plays out over the next couple of weeks? Because next week, the Brewers are in Chicago.
Yeah, there's some very important stretches coming up here. For the Reds, they've got an 11-game stretch that starts right now. I'm in Phoenix, where the Reds are going to play Arizona for a 4-game series starting tonight. Then they go to San Francisco and play the Giants for 2. Then they go home and play the Cubs 4 games in 3 days because they open with that September 1st doubleheader. Those are all the teams that are bunched up. You just said it. Right now, the first tiebreak, if they finish tied, which is entirely likely the way this thing is bunched up, I wouldn't be shocked if 2 or 3 teams are tied for position where, it's kind of the team that loses a tiebreaker doesn't make the playoffs, that kind of thing. And right now, in the Reds situation, they're tied head to head is the first tiebreaker. They're 3 and 3 against the Marlins, for instance. They're done playing them. They're 5 and 4 against the Cubs. Cubs are 4 and 5 against the Reds. That 4-game series is going to decide the tiebreaker between those teams. And then Arizona, the Reds have a big advantage there. The Cubs haven't played Arizona yet. Cubs have all 7 of their games against Arizona coming up. That's going to determine that tiebreaker. The Cubs have 7 games in 7 days coming up, starting August 28th against Milwaukee and the Reds. That's huge. And then they finish with 3 at Milwaukee. Those 10 games right there might decide it for the Cubs. All of it, like whether they have a chance at the division, never mind win it, and whether they get into the playoffs through the wild card. And then the Reds have this stretch right here. These are, I got to tell you, Cap, as a purist from back in the day, I didn't like the idea of 162 games not deciding more than this, but I love the uncertainty and the excitement and the intrigue of 6 teams in each league making the playoffs and what this wild card race looks like, because there's these little pockets of games that are going to be so significant and yet still have maybe 2 weeks to play, 3 weeks to play in some cases, or with these key series, after 2 weeks of games where it's not head to head, and then all of a sudden there's an important series at the end. These things can change there's a point at which they can change on a series, never mind a week.
The Brewers get today off, and then they get the Padres rolling into Milwaukee for 3, and then they get
the Padres. Don't sleep on the Padres.
Correct. Those games are not going to be easy for the Brewers.
Yeah, and they still think they have a chance, and they've got peripherals that suggest they could go on a run.
And they got talent that says they could absolutely go on a run.
Absolutely.
So back to the Cubs for a minute. It looks like, and the Cubs are not confirming any of this, you cannot pitch Drew Smyly as a starter in a pennant race right now. You just can't.
I was going to ask you your thoughts on him.
Terrible. Terrible. Gave away a game the other night because he couldn't get the job done. So it looks like Jordan Wicks he was scratched from his start on Wednesday night at Iowa. It looks like he is going to be recalled on Sunday. Right now, Smyly is the listed starter, but I believe it's going to be Jordan Wicks making his major league debut this weekend against Pittsburgh. Let me just read you the Pittsburgh Pirates. And again, they're major league players, the whole deal. I get it. In the second half of the season, the Pittsburgh Pirates have been, this is from my friend Michael Cerami at Bleacher Nation, brutally bad against left-handed pitching. A 78 weighted runs created plus, which is 26 in MLB. The league average is 100, so 78 is pathetically bad. So you might not have a better opportunity to debut Jordan Wicks than this Sunday in place of Drew Smyly on the road against a team that's already given up, against a team that doesn't hit lefties, and replacing a guy who just can't start for you again.
Well, yeah. And I think that makes the most sense of anything. Two things come to mind. One, with the lefty vulnerability with the Pirates, if Smiley's on schedule for that day anyway, he's just your backup plan. He's your piggyback guy. If Jordan wets the bed coming into his big league debut for whatever reason and can't get the job done, at least you've got the veteran behind him. You're no worse off than had you started with Smyly in the first place. So that makes sense to me. The other thing is, remember they brought up a rookie a year ago who they'd acquired in a trade, a guy that made his big league debut in September. No, actually, I think it was August.
Hayden Wisniewski.
And what did he do down the stretch?
He was really good.
He hadn't been the same pitcher all year this year, but that kind of you don't
gives
know what
you a little bit of juice.
It does. You get a young guy that comes up if he's ready to go, and Jordan Wicks has been hot in the minors, AA and AAA. If the right voices get to him and he doesn't try to do too much and he comes in and just takes care of business, Rossi's a good manager at like trying to make sure a guy doesn't to overextend himself and give him the best chance to succeed. What if he's able to kind of ambush the league down the stretch here a little bit? I don't think you have anything to lose because honestly, Cap, take a look at that rotation. How many guys do you trust in that Cubs rotation right now? I want to say a month ago, I was saying it might be the deepest 4 deep in the division. It's not even close to that now. Who do you trust in that rotation right now?
Right now in that rotation, I trust Justin Steele and Kyle Hendricks.
Okay, so I agree.
Now, Tyone took a no-hitter into the 6th yesterday and then ran out of gas, and I thought Rossi made a bad decision. So the bases are base hit. All of a sudden, bases are loaded, nobody out. He gets the next 2 guys. It's still a 4-0 ball game. Here comes the rookie, the left-hander, Carey, kid from the Tigers, whatever. Carey comes up. It's a lefty against the righty. I'm screaming at my TV. Okay, you bought 2 outs. Get him out of there. Get him out. He doesn't, and he hits it into the stands. The game is tied. Cubs come back and win, but Tyone is good for 5 innings for me.
And this is exactly the point of my question. It wasn't who's good, who's not good. It was who do you trust? And Tyone's got a track record. He's a talented guy. He's been around the block. But I don't trust him because you just don't know. A couple of starts ago, he gave up 8 runs. He's given up 19 runs in his last 19 and 2/3 innings, something like that. And we know how he started the season. So, yeah, Hendricks, I agree. You trust him, but he's just coming off of an injury. You hope that everything's cool there. He seems to be good. You certainly trust his poise. He's on the back 9 of his career. There's that, too. And then there's Steele, who's the best of the bunch this year.
Is he going to win the National League Cy Young?
If he finishes strong,
leads the league in wins, 14-3.
Yeah,
leads the league in win percentage, 924. And he's at 2.80 on his ERA. My question to you is, he's at 132 innings going into tonight, Thursday night start. His career high is 119.
That's where I was going with it. Because with him, the concern is workload and injury history. At this time last year, he was finishing up the season on the IL. Most of it for precautionary reasons by the time we got into September, because, again, workload issues with him. Why push it? Team wasn't in contention. But he hasn't done this before, so that gets back to who do you trust? I still trust him more than anybody else. I still trust Hendricks more than the other guys, but there's questions with all of them. And so Jordan Wicks is definitely the right way to go on Sunday, and hopefully he becomes this year's Hayden Wesneski for their sake. If not, Kap, you're probably going to be hard pressed to put together real winning streaks down the stretch. It's going to be like win 2, lose 1, win 2, lose 1, win 2, lose 2. It's going to be pulling teeth to get it done down the stretch. Otherwise, even though Cubs are scoring runs.
Okay, so a friend of mine just texted me at the exact appropriate time that we're talking about this. What are Justin Steele's odds to win the Cy Young?
Yeah, so he's got to be one of the favorites. The one guy to watch is Snell in San Diego.
Yeah, Blake Snell,
because he's up right now.
Steele is 18-1 to win it. Sounds like a smart wager to me.
Snell leads the league in ERA by a few points ahead of Steele. And Zach Gallen in Arizona is another guy to watch. He leads the league in WAR on Baseball Reference. He's third in the league in ERA.
So it's Gallen, Snell, Strider, Webb, and then Steele.
Yes. Wait, in what? WAR?
No, in odds to win the Cy Young.
Oh, I see. Yeah, so we got Gallen, and so Gallen leads WAR for pitchers on Baseball Reference. He's third in earned run average. He's tied with Steele and Strider in wins. Kershaw's got 11 wins. He was on the IL for a while too. Those are your guys right there, and it. You know what? It might come down to how the head-to-head plays out, Kap, because Arizona's fighting for wild card. Chicago's fighting for a wild card, and San Diego is hot right now. And if they catch the pack and they stay in that mix down the stretch, even if they miss, it's going to take Snell really finishing strong. A lot of this could depend on that, how they do against each other too.
So right now, Zach Gallen is even money. Snell is about 3-1. Strider is 3.5-1. Webb is 12-1. Steele is 18-1.
Snell's second in strikeouts per 9 as well. Steele's top.
And you mentioned Snell. That's who I'm trying to sign if I'm the Cubs, if all my analytic background work checks out. And all of a sudden now I got lefty in Snell, lefty in Steele, righty in Tyone, righty in Hendricks, and then perhaps it's Jordan Wicks or Cade Horton. Maybe Marcus Stroman's still here. That gives me a pretty damn good rotation.
Well, that's when these prospects start having real value for your organization, because you don't have to count on them as a number 3 starter as a rookie, but you got a few of them that show a lot of promise that can fight for back end spots and maybe even rotate.
So ESPN just ranked the minor league systems. Chicago Cubs, they have number 2 in all of baseball in the minor leagues. And they said 1 year from right now, Cade Horton could be the number 1 pitching prospect in all of baseball.
That's interesting.
That's huge.
That's interesting because I was gonna say that number 2 ranking is on the backs of pitchers. And,
Yes.
and imagine us saying that 5 years ago.
Oh my God. Theo would not be happy when we were talking about that stuff.
No.
All right, Gordon, I'm gonna spring you. When do the Reds face Zach Gallen this weekend?
That's a great question because I did not get the rotation yesterday. Let me see what Diamondbacks.com says. By the way, I've got a stat for you I want to share before we get going too. Here we go. We got Kelly
and Williamson tonight.
Zach Davies. Zach Davies on Saturday. They do not see Gallen in this series.
Oh, that's ridiculous. I got to make a call.
And you guys are going to get 7 games against these guys. I believe it's 7. I don't think it's 6. You're going to see him possibly twice. I got a stat for you. So we were talking about this. Look, man, the Cubs just played the Royals and the Tigers, and we would have thought that had they brought their A game to those 2 series, they would have had a shot to maybe sweep one of them. And they did have a chance to sweep both of them.
They did.
But they didn't, right? They won 2 out of 3. That's fine. They took care of business, and you'll take that every day of the week, win in series and then win another series and win another series. But these are kind of teams where you maybe have an opportunity to sweep. So when we talk about not having as much starting pitching as it looked like they had a few weeks ago, and when we start talking about you got to bring up this rookie and hope that he catches fire because the guy that you're replacing him with just has been terrible, then what I said about winning series, winning 2 here, losing 1, winning 2 here, losing 2, that's kind of what you're looking at down the stretch. So let me give you a stat. The Cubs have 8 3-game series and 3 4-game series left. If they win all 8 of those series, 2 games to 1, win them all, but don't sweep them. But don't lose any of them. And if they split the 3 4-game series, they'll go 22-14 the rest of the way. That would make them 88-74. And tell me what you think. Would you like your chances with 88-74? It's not
yes,
bad.
they're in the playoffs.
I think that's a good bet. What do you think your chances are of winning the division in that case?
Oh boy, 88-74 is flirting with not winning the division. I think you've got to get to 89, 90, 91 to win the division.
That's good math on your part because the Brewers are playing at a 551 clip, and that projects to 89 wins.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Well, if you do, if you kind of keep plugging along like the Cubs, make progress, don't go into a losing streak, but probably not going to have a big winning streak. 88 wins, Brewers 89 wins. Now you got 6 games against the Brewers down the stretch too, so you can swing that. And in fact, the last series of the year. But this is kind of where this is. This is part of why. I think the Brewers have a run in them. The Brewers are the most capable of the top three teams in the NL Central. I think the most capable of putting together 6 wins in a row, for instance. And both the Cubs and the Brewers are 13-7 in August. They're very similar since the break. Cubs a little bit better, but the Brewers, man, they've got healthy front end pitching right now. I like their chances.
Well, this kid pitching for the Reds tonight, how good is he? Well, I'll let you go on this.
Williamson?
Yeah.
Williamson debuted in May, and we thought that, and he debuted as an emergency starter, kind of like the Smiley situation, because they just didn't have anybody and they needed somebody desperately. He wasn't that good the first bunch of starts out. He's been really good the last bunch of starts out. And I don't think that's a fluke. I think it's a growth arc. I don't think it's circumstances. I think he's just finding his big league legs under him. He's a left-hander. He's got some pretty good stuff. He's one of these tall, lanky guys with good angles. I don't know how he finishes because his innings workload is going to be an issue. Andrew Abbott's another left-hander in there who's got big numbers overall, but this kid's pitched better than Abbott last month or so. And both those guys are going to be workload issues down the stretch. Reds have the biggest uphill climb. There's no question about it. Hunter Green looked like crap coming off of the IL the other day. And their other big savior guy that they were hoping to get back, Nick Lodolo, looks like he might be out for the year now. He had a setback.
Gordon, have a great rest of your day, man.
You too, Cap.
Appreciate you. There he is. That's my partner. That's Gordon Wittenmeyer. That'll put a ribbon on this edition of the Cubs Recap Podcast, presentation of our YouTube channel, The Recap, as well as available audio only anywhere you get your favorite podcasts. For Gordon, I'm Cap. Take that.